Hello everyone. So in this video, we are going to explore Hubzilla. We'll look at what Hubzilla is briefly, but we'll go into details in a separate video where we'll see different features and how to use it. But to give you an overview, the main strength of Hubzilla lies in its privacy controls. It has a very robust and granular privacy control system, which gives you exact permissions over what or who can see your content, who can access it, and who cannot. And it's decentralized and open, obviously. So we'll take a look at Hubzilla. We'll deploy it using a Docker image, which is available on GitHub. And we'll take and this video will mostly focus on deployment using Docker. So we won't be building the image, but you can build it, but building takes a lot of time. So instead we will use the pre-built image, which are available for different architectures. The advantage of using Docker is that you don't have to do a lot of setup. So if you look at the core Hubzilla install process, installing it on a bare metal server is very complicated. So first you have to set up the database, you have to set up the permissions, then the web server, you have to give it permissions. And so in the Docker image, all this is pre-done. You don't have to do all these steps. You just deploy it on as a Docker container and you'll get a server hub ready to go. And even the email address, sometimes you'll have trouble getting the emails through, but here we have used SSMTP, which sends your email through a email gateway such as Google or your own email server if you have one. And also it updates on its own, so all you have to do is restart the container and it will pull the latest updates from the Hubzilla repository and it will deploy it. So you don't have to worry about issuing commands and all that, although you can do it manually also, but this is much more convenient. So we'll go to our Linux server or our Docker machine and we'll deploy a simple hub. So I already have a domain set up and I have the relevant proxy on my Nginx and my DNS set up to point to our server. So let's start. Okay, so let's go to our to our machine running the Docker. So here we have our machine known as Alpha and running on Ubuntu and Docker. So if you do a simple command Docker version to see the version, so we can see Docker is running version 27.1.1, and I have a folder called Docker Compose where all my Docker files are there. So what we'll do is we'll clone the repository using the command git clone and the address. So the cloning is done. Let's cd into the Hubzilla Docker into LSA. So we have the environment file, we have the Docker file, and all the other files. So we'll take a quick look at the different files, what we need to change, and we'll deploy this hub. Okay, so let's start. First, we'll take a look at our Docker file, that is Docker Compose. In our Docker file, we have a container called DB, which runs the MariaDB database. And we have another one called app, which runs the Hubzilla. So this will need to change because we are not building the image, but we are rather using the pre-built image. And we don't need to touch anything else. Another thing that you'll need to change is your networks. So this Hubzilla is an internal network which connects the DB to your app. So we don't need to do anything. But this Nginx is our proxy network. So in my case, on my Nginx proxy, whatever network my Nginx proxy server is, that's where I have to connect my Hubzilla app to, so that it can proxy the data from my public IP to my container. And the next file you'll need to change is the environment file. So if you take a look at the environment file, we have the SSMTP root. So this is your root email. So for example, if your server or if your hub is running on hub.mydomain.com, then this address will be administrator at your domain, that is hub.mydomain.com. The mail server, so this is your SMTP server. If you are using Gmail, this will be something like mail.google.com, and the port is fine. As an auth user, this will be your email address. So if you have a Gmail address, this will be your username and at gmail.com. SMTP password, you'll need to give your SMTP password, your user account password, that is your Gmail password. If you're using two-factor authentication, you need to specify an app password. And here again, you'll have to give your this one, user@example.com, or your Gmail address here. This is needed to for SSMTP so that it can successfully send us email, and your mail server address. Only these two fields need to be changed. And then for the database settings, the root password, you'll need to set a strong root password to database host, that is DB. This is the name of the container that is running our MariaDB database. The username for accessing the database. In our case, if we have used Hubzilla, you can choose something longer and random. And similarly for the password, you can use a longer and stronger password. And your data name. In our case, we'll go with the defaults just to demonstrate our deployment of our hub. So let's do a quick Docker compose. Oh no, first we need to change our image file. So right, this one. We need to change this to the image that is specified on the GitHub repository. This is S. This should pull the latest image. And now we can do a docker compose ops -d. So it's pulling the image, the database image, and the app image. Once it has pulled, it should be running. So it has created the two containers, a network. It has started. So we can do a docker compose ps to see our running containers. And we can do a docker compose logs and follow to see our logs. So see, it is cloning the add-ons repository here. This is our database. This means our database is ready. So it is cloning all the add-ons and other things. Okay, so Apache is also started. So it did everything. It cloned the Hubzilla repository into our HTML file and everything. Now our hub should be up and running. So let's take a look. So let's go to our web browser and see what we are doing. So let's open up a new tab. And this is my address. So this is what you'll see, the initial setup screen, where it will show you that all the requirements are required. And your maximum total upload size is 20 megabytes. This you can change in the php.ini file, but 20 MB is enough for most images. And everything is all right. So we'll do a next. So it will go to our database. Now here the database server name, you remember, was the container name of our database, which was DB. What we'll use as default. Default login name was Hubzilla. This was Hubzilla password. Remember to use a strong password. Database name was also Hubzilla. That's it. Let's submit it. Administrator email address, we'll do the same, admin. Now remember, here you have to use an HTTPS and whatever your hub address is and your time zone. So in my case, it's Asia, Kolkata. And we'll do a submit, and it will create our hub. It will set up all these values in our environment file, and we should see the initial registration screen. So installation succeeded. Yeah, our database has been installed. So this, we don't need to worry about this. This has already been done. A cron task has been scheduled. So now we can go to our registration page and register as a new member. So the first thing that we need to do is register an admin. So our name, will choose admin. Short name admin is fine. Admin. Add this, a password. Yes. Now register. Verification token. This will be on available on your email address. So you go to your email, get that token and enter it here. And we'll go into detail in our next video. We'll take a look at Hubzilla, how to set up an account, and the different various features.